Hello, community. Welcome to another episode of Both Sides of the Conversation. And it is Tuesday night, so you know what that means. Tonight we are showcasing our hidden gems. My name is Mark Scott. I am the co host, and I am joined by my amazing co host, Miss Io White. Io, say something to the people.
Good evening, community.
All right. And on behalf, of course, as always, Bishop John Henry, who is out in the community. We wish he could be here, but we're going to hold it down for him. And always, we just want to make sure that we give out the information. So we're excited about speaking to our hidden gem this evening. But before we do that, we got to get the information out to you. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the news, and that'll be followed by our events. And I'll get us started with our news. So, local news first headline reads Report fentanyl deaths in San Francisco surge, city on track to surpass previous totals. The fentanyl crisis in San Francisco is worsening, with overdose deaths increasing by 40% in the first 5 months of 2023 compared to the same period in 2022. Out of 346 deaths, nearly 80% were due to fentanyl. May was particularly deadly with 74 deaths. The San Francisco Department of Public Health attributes the crisis to fentanyl, a potent synthetic opioid, but noted that the distribution of Noxalon kits and other interventions have prevented even more deaths. Despite a law enforcement crackdown, Health Rights 360-degree Wesley Savior argues that a law enforcement first approach could make things worse and calls for more voluntary services and resources such as drug sobering and overdose prevention centers. Also, local headline reads ex San Francisco official set to be fined $24,000 for ethics violations. Former San Francisco Planning Commissioner Frank Fung has agreed to a fine of $24,200 for violating city ethics rules. The San Francisco Ethics Commission found that Fung's architectural firm, ED2 International, entered into a subcontract with the city's airport commission in 2021 while he was serving as a city official. The firm received $39,460 from the city for this contract. Fung also failed to report significant income he received as an owner of the architectural firm while serving as a planning commissioner. The proposed fine includes $20,000 for entering a contract agreement with the city while holding a government position and $4,200 for not disclosing income. Fung was not available for comment at the time of publication. Also in national news, mother of 6-year-old who allegedly shot Virginia teacher pleads guilty to charge of felony child neglect. I remember this story. Deja Taylor, the mother of a 6-year-old boy who shot his teacher in Virginia, pleaded guilty to felony child neglect. As part of a plea deal, a charge of reckless storage of a firearm was dropped, and her sentence will not exceed 6 months. The boy shot his teacher, Abby Werner, who required hospitalization and multiple surgeries. The gun was brought to school in the boy's backpack. Taylor claimed that the gun was secured with a trigger lock, but none was found in her home. She has taken responsibility for her son's action due to the severe ADHD. Zwerner has sued school officials for $40 million, alleging gross negligence and ignored warnings about the boy's behavior. Entire police department resigns in Minnesota City, leaves mayor blindsided with zero applicants. The entire police force in Goodhue, Minnesota resigned, leaving the small city without a police department. Police Chief Josh Smith, who will serve until August 24th, revealed that he had been unable to find any new recruits for the force despite searching for 3 weeks. Smith cited low pay and competition from larger communities as reasons for the lack of recruitment. Goodhue Mayor Ellen Anderson Buck assured residents that the city will still have police coverage. City Council members Chris Schmidt praised the police force for their excellent service and expressed the desire to have small town policing back. No comments were received from the Goodhue Police Department, mayor, or city council members regarding the situation. And that will do it for our news. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you to give out the community events.
Yes. Ooh, that was a heavy load. But luckily we do have some great things going on in the community this week and upcoming weeks. The African American Arts and Culture Complex is pleased to announce the search for a managing director to join their management team. The closing date for application is this Friday, August 18th. The Recovery Day Planning Committee invites you to attend the third annual Recovery Day, hosted by Richard Beal of THC, August 18th, 12 to 3 p.m. at Bodecker Park, located at Jones and Eddy Street in San Francisco. Admission is free. There will be free food and raffle. The Order of Malta Clinic of Northern California is looking to hire clinical nurse supervisor in Oakland. Join the AALAA for a community panel discussion on Saturday, August 19th at 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Come out, join the conversation, and meet folks at Plymouth United Methodist Church of Christ at 424 Monte Vista Avenue in Oakland. SFBLK presents the San Francisco Soul Musical Festival, a free event on Sunday at 12 p.m., August 20th, 2023. It will be held at Yerba Buena Gardens, 750 Howard Street in San Francisco. There will be live musical performances and more. To RSVP, see the link in the description. Chillin' and Grillin' San Francisco, District 11, Sunday, August 20th, 2023, at Ocean View Park, 650 Capitol Avenue at Montana, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., and it is free to the public. Come out and join the 2023 Betrayal Hill Day on the Green Family Day. It will be Saturday, August 26th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. It will be located at the Betrayal Hill Gym at 801 Arkansas Street, San Francisco. Volunteers are still needed, so please register. OMI Cultural Participation Project, a day at the races, Saturday, August 26, 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Golden Gate Fields Racetrack, Turf Club, 1100 East Shore Highway in Berkeley, California. Entry fee is $100. Cold Tenderloins Job Readiness Program, September 5th, 2023 at 222 2nd Street, San Francisco, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Orientation, September 1st, 2023 at 55 Taylor Street. Cold Tenderloins Free Coding Boot Camp, September 6th to the 25th, Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. at 55 Taylor Street. Restorative Justice is hosting the 11th annual Reentry Conference and Job Fair, Friday, September 8th, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at St. Mary's Cathedral Event Center on 1111 Gulf Street, San Francisco. It's free admission, parking, and continental breakfast and lunch. Doors open at 7:45 a.m. New vaccination site, COVID-19 booster, monkeypox antiviral pill treatment. Thursday, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at 330 Ellis Street, as well as Saturdays, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at 1221 Mission Street. The San Francisco Justice Project presents the San Francisco Museums for All program. Free or $3 donations to low-income families in San Francisco all summer long. The community living room open all day, Monday through Friday, breakfast 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and grab and go lunches from 2:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. at City of Hope Cafe, 750 Ellis Street in San Francisco. International Shakeout Day on October 19th, 2023. Join in on the world's largest earthquake drill. Register to participate. Farmers Market located at the Southeast Community Center, 1550 Evans Avenue, San Francisco, every Thursday now through November 30th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. They accept cash, debit, and EBT. OMI Cultural Participation Projects, The Lion King, Friday, December 8th, 7:30 p.m. at the Orpheum Theater, 1192 Market Street in San Francisco. Wu Yi presents the Holiday Pajama Jam for the Bottles and Blanket Pantry on Saturday, December 16th, 2023, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at 4900 3rd Street. They are now a new nonprofit and donations are needed. OMI Cultural Participation Project, The Wiz, Saturday, January 27, 2024, at 7:30 p.m. at the Golden Gate Theater, 1 Taylor Street in San Francisco. San Francisco Human Rights Commission has a weekly, bi-monthly commission meeting on the second and fourth Thursday of each month at 5 p.m. in San Francisco City Hall Room 416. You can also visit via Zoom. Be a mentor in SFUSD. Join SFUSD school-based mentoring program, Mentoring from Success. Sign up to volunteer as an individual or group mentor district-wide. Would you like to promote your business, nonprofit, or community impact? Sign up for our Hidden Gem Show. Share your expertise on our Educational Thursday and be a panelist on Sunday's conversation. Keep up with both sides of the conversation's latest shows and community outreach events. Follow us on all social media platforms. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at bsotc.org. BSOTC welcomes individuals who are interested in giving back to the community to join us as volunteers. We value the positive impact volunteers can make and invite you to be a part of our mission to uplift and support our community. BSOTC kindly requests your invaluable support for our podcast and community engagement endeavors. We cordially invite you to explore any of our donation links, as your generous contributions will greatly aid us in enhancing our programming. We would like to take this time to acknowledge the Dreamkeeper Initiative and its support of BSOTC's programming. The Dreamkeeper Initiative amplifies the voices of and invest in San Francisco diverse Black communities to reform public safety and address structural inequities in San Francisco. Join us also this Thursday, August 17th, for our Educational Thursday, as well as this Sunday, August 20th, 4 p.m. for our Sunday's conversation.
Wow. Good job, Ayo. Congratulations getting through all those events. I know after the news, that was heavy. But one of the things, again, community, we're all about the people. And when you can take heavy stuff and turn it around, I think that is probably what is the epitome of what our guest for Hidden Gems here has done tonight. So before we bring her up, I want to take an opportunity to give a formal introduction because she definitely deserves one. Our guest, her name is Miss Dana Cheatham. She is the founder and executive director of Total Women Empowerment. Ms. Cheatham was born and raised in San Francisco, California. And from the ages of 10 to 13, she experienced brutal molestation. By 16, she found herself the victim of human trafficking, was hooked on drugs, and by the age of 18, she was serving a life sentence in prison. Dana would eventually spend the next 25 years and 330 days in prison. And now Dana is a leading voice for women and is spearheading a national movement to help save the lives of women who have been abused and who have faced challenges in their lives. She is a survivor, motivational speaker, a mentor, certified professional life coach, and a thought leader whose story of survival and personal transformation has inspired many. So again, without any further ado, with great pleasure, I want to bring up Miss Dana Cheatham. Miss Dana, are you there with us?
I am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful greeting and introduction.
Oh,
Are you talking about me?
Oh, we are absolutely talking about you again. We are so grateful to have you this evening on the platform to share with the community. Please, we want to turn this over, introduce yourself, and let the people know who you are and what you have.
Well, As mentioned, my name is Dana Cheatham. I am the founder and executive director of Total Woman Empowerment, but I'm also a mother, a sister, a friend, and just a lover of people. And that's one of the things that brought me to the work. Wow. So I guess I'll start a little bit by telling a little bit about my story and what prompted Total Woman Empowerment. As you mentioned, I was incarcerated for, I pretty much rounded up, but 25 years and 330 days, which is, if you cough a couple of times, it'll be 26 years. So I was incarcerated at 18 years old, and that many years later, I ended up returning. While incarcerated, well, let me kind of tell you a little bit about how I got to that place. So I grew up in a home that was just really abusive. And back then, at that time, when I was growing up, it was kind of the culture, but I didn't realize that at the time, where there was a lot of physical abuse, verbal abuse. And if you watch television today, you see movies like The Burning Bed and Enough and all of that, which was depicting the times at that time. Well, unbeknownst to me, that was shaping my thought process and the way I was moving in my life. At 18 years, well, at 13 years old, or from 10 to 13, as mentioned, I started being very sexually abused. And by 13 years old, I was on the streets of San Francisco. And you heard the rest of the story, trafficking. By 16, I was hooked on drugs. And I did not really realize who I'd become at that time. I didn't realize how I was thinking. I didn't realize how I was moving. You don't know what you don't know until you realize what you don't know. So all of that would result in my committing a dreadful crime. While under the influence of crack cocaine, I stabbed and killed a woman. And I say that because that's just the truth, for no other reason except that is the truth. But what I talk about is how while my hand was on the knife, there were many hands that were not seen that were on the knife, that people will never see unless I speak to it. And that's kind of the process that brought me to where I was. That's the shaping in my home. Fast forward, I was convicted and sentenced to prison. And while I was incarcerated, and it took a minute for me to realize that my actions had actually kicked me out the world, right? So it took a minute for me to realize that. It was something a very good friend of mine said while I was incarcerated, and that was, I hope you get your life together before your son realizes how much effort you're putting into staying in prison. And that just landed on me, and I had to hear that. And then I started seeing that I was putting effort into staying incarcerated. At that point, that was kind of the turning point in my life. I spent some time investing in trying to just be a better person, reflecting, how did I get here? How did I become a person that can make such a choice? Why am I still in this state of being? Why am I still in this thought process? What is it? What do I need to do to move away from here? So I really started working towards understanding that and then moving forward. And while I was incarcerated, not while I was incarcerated, I had my son when he was, when I gave birth to him. My grandmother was washing his hair for the first time, and she was nurturing and showing me, and she was saying, now, as you wash his head, you are going to shape his head because he had a real big cone head. And so you just massage it real gently and shape his head so that it doesn't stay that way. Well, years of my incarceration, that landed on me like a ton of bricks. And what it translated to me is that women shape the world. We shape the world by shaping our child, who shapes our home, who shapes our community. And that thing that you do or don't do, that thing that you say or don't say, it is going to be in the world when you're no longer in the world. And so that was the foundation for which Total Woman Empowerment was born, because I had to start with shaping myself, right? And so that's where, like I say, Total Woman Empowerment was born and conceived. My thoughts were, when I first paroled in 2012, and in 2017, that's when I started doing the work. Also in 2017, that's when I returned to the city that I was born and raised in. And initially my hopes was to do the work with the women. Like, I was going to church and I was realizing all the people I had lived with in prison were in church, were my neighbors. They just looked different. Like their thought process was flowing out of their mouth, and it was just as distorted as mine was when I went to prison. And that's not coming from a judgment standpoint, but an observation standpoint, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge, right? And so at that point in my life, I realized the call was the call, that I was supposed to be doing the thing that was birthing on the inside of me. Does that make sense? So at that point, my heartbeat was to provide services to women around how unrecognized trauma has the potential to change the trajectory of our life, right? Because if you keep living, you're going to experience some trauma. I'm sorry, it's just going to happen. But it's about what do I say about this situation that determines the outcome and the outcomes in my life and the decisions that I make beyond that. And so, like I say, initially, I felt like I hadn't been incarcerated with Black women or white women or Mexican women, but I had been incarcerated with broke women. So my heart was to give services to women, period. But as I was doing that, I realized that Black women had the greatest need because they had the least resources, right? So like insurance will fund, private insurance will fund abstinence. Medicare will fund harm reduction. And harm reduction says you don't die today, you die tomorrow. Does that make sense? And so that shaped my thought process to know when Black women need the most resources. So then I started really trying to do the work with Black women. As I was doing the work with Black women, I realized we women will follow our man to the end of the earth, right? So how do you elevate the woman without elevating the man? How do you elevate the family if you don't bring in the man? That birthed Destined for Greatness. Now, let me tell you the story about Destined for Greatness. While I was incarcerated, I was at a group and they asked the question. So you had to identify yourself by an adjective name. And so everybody had delightful Darla, motivated Mike. When they came to me, they asked me what was my name, and I said Destined for Greatness Dana. And they said, that's not one word. I said, but when I say it, it is. So it's one word when I say it. And so that name stayed with me. And the reason why it stayed with me, because I know that my words have power, and your words have been used to speak death over me, to speak curses over me, to speak harm over me. So now when you call my name, oh yeah, with intent, you're going to speak life into me. And when I say my name, that I'm destined for greatness, Dana, that I'm going to remind myself that regardless of my past experiences, it doesn't disqualify me from the call, and that I was yet and still destined for greatness. So that birth, destined for greatness. Now, Destined for Greatness is a program funded through DKI, the Dream Keepers Initiative, and we work with transitional age youth, 16 to 24 years old. And the reason that I identified 16 to 24 years old is because that is the time in my life when the things that had taken place in my life began to manifest, right? So like we all have a part in the world to do. And I don't feel like my part is to close the prison. My part is to get in front of the prison. So if you understand who you are, you don't have to worry about going to prison, because you will rise to who you are. You won't succumb to the systems that have been designed to tell you who you are. So that, like I said, that brought about Destined for Greatness. Let me go back a minute and speak to the vision of Total Woman Empowerment. The vision, because like I said, what the work is about, helping women understand how unresolved trauma has the potential to change the trajectory of our pathway, which means that affects your child, that affects your home, that affects your community. And when you're no longer here and your child is operating in the world, I'm trying to see what's going on the thing. When your child is operating in the world, then he is now, or she is now, manifesting that, because we carry the wounds of our parents' womb of our. Does that make sense? So the vision is that no person would be the product or the recipient of another person's trauma, period, with a T. And then, so as doing the work for myself, it's so important that I remind myself that I got to take care of myself, because I grew up in a culture where it was all about taking care of everybody else. Be sure to take care of your brother. Make sure you get the house together. You know, it was all about the culture that we live in has perpetuated taking care of everybody else, even though we always say numero uno. I think we only say that with words, right? So that birthed the Queen's Weekend Retreat. And I typically do the Queen's Weekend Retreat around my birthday, September 10th, because I am the queen, a queen of queens. And it's important to celebrate me, but it's also important that I intentionally take time to take care of me, because I feel like the call that God has given me, I can't do it if I don't take care of me. So like I said, we have this culture where we've been groomed to take care of everyone else, but we don't take the time to take care of ourselves. And I think it's important. I think we actually need to do teaching around the culture, the values, and the necessity for self-care. You know, we talk about, so in my definition, self-care, the definition according to Dana, self-care is just that, taking care of myself, taking care of myself as far as eating. And you know, when you're doing the work, sometimes you could forget to eat because you're so consumed. Getting adequate rest. For me, I enjoy watching TV. There's particular TV programs on the during the week that typically nothing comes in between that time. Nope, not at this time, because it's about me right now. You know, I've invested enough in enough people, and I need to be intentional about investing in me. You know, and we just don't do that enough. And so the Queen's Weekend Retreat is actually coming up September 8th. We still have people, I mean, we still have slots available for those queens who are interested and interested in stopping and saying, nope, this is about me. You know, while I was incarcerated, my son still existed. The people that I left, they still did things, still went on without me. And I don't say that. I say that to say it's okay for me to permit me to take care of me without feeling guilty. Does that make sense? So I could talk for a long, long time, but I do need y'all to talk back to me.
We were letting you get it all out. All of that is very encouraging and motivating. We had on the show a guest and speaking to the fact of domestic violence and not just doing the reform work or the getting the resources to those who've been victimized and or should we say survivors of that, but also doing the reform work to those who were the abusers. And so, like you said, you know, doing the work not only for yourself, but also making sure that you extend that olive branch is very important. And I'm all for woman empowerment, but to make sure that we are extending that empowerment to our men. Like you said, we are the nurturers, we are the caterers, we are the multipliers, we are the life bearers. And with that, who can we be without our men? You know, we are the goddesses, but it is our job to make sure we uphold our kings and elevate them and keep them at their hierarchy because it's about balance. We don't have to be equal, but it's about balance. And how can we step in our light as the queens that we are if we do not make sure that we are uplifting our men aside of us? Because we can have all the girl power and feminism and all of these things. However, God created man and woman, and we must coexist and coincide with one another to be on one accord and able to actively be independently and collectively. To be able to function by myself, I need my balance. And able to be a multiplier, I need the developer. And able to be the queen that I am, I need to be held accountable by my king. I need to be pulled up by my bootstraps. I need to be motivated and all those things and poured into because that is what I want to reciprocate because that is what I give. And that is the model behavior we must have for our children. Who are they to know what their place is in life and how to be if we do not model that behavior? I have 2 sons, and shout out to the Virgos. Both of my boys are Virgos. Shout out to you, Miss Dana. But I have 2 sons. So the way they see me being a mother, an entrepreneur, a workhorse, all of these things, they understand that my role to them is to amplify all of those things and to show them, but I can't teach them how to be a man.
Exactly. And
I can't empathize when they're going through those guy things So it's important to have those positive male role models, those positive male influences that we want them to see, and to know that you want to see a woman to be like your mother. And that's what you want to look for in a woman when you get older as well. So I commend you on the work you're doing, pouring into our sisters, pouring into our babies, and pouring into our men, most importantly.
And so, I've actually forgot to mention that. Don't hear me say, when I say that women shape the world, we absolutely shape the world. But men are also a part of that, right? They're the developers. But I can't be the man. I can only be the woman. I can teach him, what I know, but I'll never know how to be a man, right? I can teach him what it's like to be a sister to my brother. But I don't have that piece. And so it's equally important that he play his part. But as my responsibility, I feel like I always say there is no, we have no friends and we have no enemies, but everyone is our teacher, right? And so, and in the same lighting, everyone I come across, I'm learning from. So I'm teaching, but I'm also learning. And so I need the man to teach me, but I also need him to teach him. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And it's a great thing for this women's weekend retreat, to teaching and learning from your sisters about getting back to femininity, not operating in your masculine, because we have our men, we have our kings, we have them to pull that weight. I would never want to know the burdens and the struggles of what a man has to deal with. But as a woman, as a strong Black woman, as a queen, it is my job to let him know he is not alone in this. I am here by your side in any way possible. I always say is, give me your vulnerability and I'll show you my abilities. That is the true responsibility of a multiplier as a woman. Let me show you, by you even trusting me with your vulnerability, I'm going to amplify each and every one of them. And we're going to turn all that negative energy into positive doings. And that's what we want to pour into both our women and our men. So if we are able to uplift the community and the village in that way, our children have a fighting chance. It's no way up but here. You know what I mean? Like nowhere else to go up, And I really do commend you, because just even with Mark reading over your bio, it's like, I'm holding him back, but that is so strengthening. You walk the walk, and the talk that you talk is from experience. The talk that you talk is from your life story, and to have the bravery to share your testimony, that is going to empower so many women who think they're alone in this. You are truly a hidden gem. And I'm so glad that you came on tonight, because we are shedding light on some things that are, especially in our community, in a Black community, that we shy away from. We sweep it under the rug. We think woe is me, or we utilize those things as a crutch to stay stagnant in it. But to utilize it as your motivation, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And not to diminish anything I've heard, but I will say this, you don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know. And so sometimes if you've been accustomed to operating in a certain place for a long time, you don't know that it's a crutch. For you, you think it's a comforter. But in the words of one of my really good friends, Siobhan Hunter, Stand in Peace International, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So one of the results of being incarcerated for almost 26 years is social anxiety. Like I struggled to the 10th power with social anxiety. And people wouldn't know that because once I'm in your company, I'm kind of large. I mean, my personality is just it's engaging because I love people, but I still struggle with that. So I went so far to drove to an event, got out the car, parked the car, got out the car, walked to the event, and decided I was not going in, period, with a T. But I'm not going to be able to move forward in anything I need to do if I continue in that position. And so I don't know where it stems from. I'm still a work in progress, and I'm still trying to figure out and unpack some of these things that were, deposited or that I picked up along the way. I don't know where it came from, but I know until I figure out where it's come from, I'm going to have to exercise that muscle by being places I'm feeling uncomfortable, or I initially feel uncomfortable growing to. And so I think that sometimes people are not aware that it's a crutch, and what they believe is that it's their comfort zone. But sometimes the comfort zone, which I'll call a blessing, can be a curse. Does that make sense?
It does make sense because we get comfortable in things that are familiar to us. And one of the unfortunate byproducts of our society is we inherited an environment that is filled with toxic, abusive, violent, repressive, oppressive messaging, media, and just a way of life that is not really native to who we are naturally as a people. And after going through over 450 years of trauma, abuse, and
Yes.
never having it properly addressed and dealt with. And honestly, you kind of remind me of Dr. Joyce DeGruy, who wrote the book on post-traumatic slave syndrome and talked about how generational trauma has been passed on even to the point of our DNA, and where what we are experiencing in toxic environments, because it's all we know, it does seem normal. It does seem comforting. And even if we're given an opportunity to be in a healthy situation, we'll self-sabotage because, again, we don't know what we don't know. So, one, I think we've all had to learn how to give ourselves a little bit more grace, because particularly for you, sister, I commend you and respect your bravery and courage in sharing your testimony, just like Io said. But I know you can't undo 26 years of incarceration in 26 months. Like, your process is going to be unfolding, but you have the courage to turn all of that into something that helps people. And I wanted to ask you, as a motivational speaker and a life coach, what are some of the key lessons that you try to share with women to help them kind of navigate some of the things that they may be experiencing in a rewarding way that can help them as a mentor?
Awareness, self-awareness. That's the biggest key, is just becoming aware of you, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge, right? So it's important that we take the time to do the work unapologetically and okay, I don't mind if you're afraid when you do it, but let's not let fear keep you there. So I talk about, while I was incarcerated, you remember the Hurricane Katrina, 2005? So when I started my self-exploration process, it was kind of as if a drone, with an M, because I always say it with an M, but as a drone was going canvassing over me, I had to ask myself, so what do you see, right? Where are you? Where are you? Where? Like, where are you at in this where? And for me, at that time in my life, I was depressed. I was afraid. I had anxiety. I was in unhealthy relationships. I was worse than being in prison. I was in prison. And so we have to start with asking ourselves, where am I at? And then I got to be honest with myself, right? So I got to answer that question. Don't worry, nobody's going to see it. At least be honest with myself. Because once I figure out where I'm at, I don't know, I'm sure everybody has been lost before. Once you lost, one of the questions you ask yourself is, how did I get here? And then you kind of trying to go back around the block and see them landmarks. And when you first started, then you can ask yourself, how did I get here? You know, and why are you still here? Okay, so you know how that you are here.
Mhm.
And you kind of figuring out how you got here. But let's not, okay, so let's say you can't figure out how you got here. Okay, let's not stumble over that. Why are you still here? What's keeping you here? You know, what is here doing for you? Because obviously it's doing something for us. Because if not, we would have moved away from it. Maybe
So
it's protecting you.
sorry. So what are the tools you would say that you offer for healing and empowering women, in specifics to the survivors and or women that have been abused in trafficking? So I hear you're saying, you know, you're trying to get them to identify being in that stuck place. Do you use the motivation that you utilize for yourself as one of the tools, or is there steps and programs that you and use when working with the women, when mentoring and or away on the retreat as well? Are there steps that you may use, or what is it that you feel are some guiding lights for women in those situations?
So for one, I provide a space where they can simply be, you know, a safe space where you don't have to put on no airs, where you don't have to expect anything in return, a space where you can be safe. And then we talk through it and we talk about, okay, so what are some of the things that you do when, like, what are some of the things that you do to encourage yourself? You know, we use affirmations. We remind ourselves who we who we are versus what we've been told we are. You know, we remind ourselves that through education and journaling and listening to things that fill your spirit, like music or affirming I don't want to call it music, but affirming speeches, for lack of a better term. Spoken words, I think that's what it's called. You know, listening to that to fill your spirit.
Like affirmations.
Yes, but it's in music type form. Flowetry, that's what I'm looking for.
Oh.
Affirming flowetry. And again, providing just support and mentoring and yeah, journaling and affirming, and more important, like I say, the retreat that gives you a space to be around other people who's also been through some things and who's overcoming. And sometimes one person is only one step in front of you, but if you've made it one step, then you can tell me how I can get there, or you can hold my hand. You know, just hold my hand. Expect nothing in return.
So, can I ask you personally, because I understand in doing the work, I spent the better part of 2 decades in pastoral ministry after I came out of prison. Again, I had my own experience and I understand that transition. And for a while, certain things used to trigger me back to my past experiences. Do you still experience like psychological triggers stemming from your past traumas, or like how do you manage to keep moving forward, and do you still deal with maybe roadblocks sometimes or hurdles or triggers?
So one of the things that trigger me is when I'm shotgunned. When I'm having a conversation and I'm cut off, I'm talked to super fast, asked questions one after the other. Yes, to answer the question, I'm absolutely still triggered. When I find that I'm getting angry, I've mastered this good too. I intentionally bring my energy all the way down because I don't have the luxury of inheriting your energy. So, yes, I absolutely still get triggered. I think absolutely, absolutely. There is absolutely a muscle memory, right, of those experiences. And so, um, like I say, I bring myself down when someone is loud in my space. I don't have the luxury to get loud with you. I get all the way calm, because that's my protection. And when I find that I'm being shotgunned or talked to and I'm being cut off, so initially I would stop talking and let the person go on. But no, I'm not gonna dumb down for you. I make them aware that every time I go to say something, you cut me off, which is rude. I get the impression that you don't believe I have anything to say. So why don't we stop talking at this point? Does that make sense? I take ownership for me. At this point, we're not reciprocating, so I'm probably not supposed to be here. Have at it. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense. I've had to do that myself often in conversations because again, the hardest thing to get anybody to do is to change their mind. And a lot of times, if you're bringing a different perspective or different point of view, a lot of times people do feel challenged, so they tend to escalate in their energy and conversation. And I've noticed if you feed into that energy, all it does is continue to escalate. So I'm like you. And I taught my daughters all of this number one rule is no matter what, just stay calm. You think better and you are much more poised if you can keep yourself calm, even if somebody else is acting up. So it makes sense. Absolutely.
And then in now in personal relationships, like in personal intimate relationships, it's hard not to take things personal, right? Like when you have a personal intimate relationship, that's a different conversation. But in other conversations, you know what? That's not my stuff. And I don't have to take that personal. I don't have to disrespect myself because you're being disrespectful. How do you overcome the ignorance of others who cannot empathize with your experience? That's their ignorance. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't change. Ignorance is being unlearned. It's just not having awareness. And I can't control your process. I'm sure at some point you'll elevate, but it's not going to be today. And so what do? I let them have their space. That's your stuff. I don't live in my past mistakes. I am not my past mistakes. And so if you can't accept my past experiences, then I keep in mind that everybody has their own process. It's not for me to dictate it. Did that answer the question?
Oh, absolutely. Sister Aya?
I was just going to go off what you were saying about what your experience was. In your opinion, how do most victims become involved in human trafficking?
How do most victims? I think sometimes we one, we think we're alone. So we don't share, we don't talk to anyone else about what's going on. I think some of the things that I'll speak on my own experience. I know in my own experience, a lot of my self-esteem played into that. So I thought that it was important to make you happy. The trafficker, it was important to make you happy. And I felt like that was a type of love. That was my delusion and my distorted thinking. So that was my experience. I didn't tell people. A lot of times we don't talk to people about the things that's going on. We've also, a lot of times, are groomed. That makes sense? So they're groomed for that position. Sometimes family members are held in other words, I'm going to hurt somebody that you love. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it really hits at the core of how anybody who's in a situation where they're dealing with issues of self-worth could find themselves being vulnerable to these types of psychological manipulations and narcissistic head games. But how do like what strategy have you been able to develop on how you reassure yourself on your self-worth? Because it's a day-by-day thing. How do you reassure and continue to build that queen mentality, but still remaining compassionate, empathetic, and understanding?
So I do that by looking at some of my past accomplishments. So growing up, I struggled with being keeping up in school. So I had to get up early, stay late, and do more than what other people did. Like I couldn't just show up every day to go to school and pass a test. I had to do more. And so in my past schoolings, like I still have a lot of my writings from college. A lot of the things that I've written, I store it. So when I'm feeling not so good about myself or that I can't do this, I remind myself, yes, you can. Read that paper. Girl, that was a good paper you wrote. So I remind myself of the things I've overcome. And girl, you still standing and still moving and still thriving. Yes, you've made some mistakes, but ain't none they ain't took you out. And so you still got this.
I think that self-motivation talk really does help. And when you're interacting with people who come to you for inspiration, I think that the modeled behavior is what is most important. Because it's like you talk the talk, but you can't walk the walk. You know what I mean? And I just want to take this time to give you your flowers, Ms. Dana, and all of the self work you've done and extending the olive branch to those who have similar experiences, who feel alone and or trapped in that world and that mindset. Like you said, it's the mindset, you feel you get trapped. It's the mentality and not having a voice for so long. I, for one, can't speak from experience, but I do know of some young ladies who have had that experience. And with dealing with that, it was the manipulation. It was the yearning for self-worthiness and being validated by a man, that they were easily manipulated into these situations and they didn't know how to get themselves out. No matter how much somebody can, family can come to them and say, you don't have to do this, baby. They don't understand because this is the only love and the yearning that they have. So seeking that is where they get trapped. And I am so happy that we had you on to shed some light on what you're doing. So somebody watching, in hopes that somebody's watching or somebody can share this tonight with someone they know, and just let them watch it. Let them be inspired. Let them reach out to you in a way and hoping that their voice will be heard. So I thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate you for sharing your testimony with us. I cannot imagine nor can I empathize with what you've had to go through and grow through to get to here. My word has been unlearning. So I appreciate you using that, because it's confirmation for me that you're on the road to the right way. And I just thank you for coming on this evening, sharing your story and giving us the information.
And before we go, I just would like to encourage, if there's some really want to speak to the women, I want to give you an opportunity to be intentional about taking care of yourself, putting you first, allowing the things of the world and the house and all those things to be. If it'll go on without you for this weekend, give yourself the time that you need. Come get a massage. Come be around like-minded women. Come do some self-work to continue to charge so that we can continue being who we are in our community.
Well, we are so grateful for you sharing that powerful message. And again, want to make sure before you go, is there anybody out there that in your journey has been a light, a support, or somebody that you want to acknowledge? Because again, the broadcast will have an opportunity to be viewed many times over, and we want to give you an opportunity to make sure there's anybody you want to acknowledge, that you can do that as well, Queen.
Yes, so there's a few people. Dr. Jones of Because Black is Still Beautiful. She has been just a major cheerleader in my life. Siobhan Hunter of Stand in Peace International has been a major cheerleader in my life. Malik Wade in Scholastic Interest Group. He has been just amazing and just encouraging me and telling me, you got it. You got this. Come on and do this. And obviously, I don't want to say obviously because it may not be obvious, but my family has been just amazing. And above all, my Lord and Savior, Jesus, God has just been the elevator of my life, so.
Well, again, we want to just say thank you, give you your flowers, and appreciate you for sharing your time and your story with us. And again, we encourage everybody, y'all reach out. Ladies, y'all please go to this retreat. Fellas, look, I know sometimes y'all get tired of hearing women say, they need their own thing, their own retreat. But fellas, let's understand how valuable and important healed, healthy, and whole, safe women are. So let's encourage our sisters. If you know a sister that needs some time to get away, y'all please encourage her to reach out to this Queen's Weekend retreat. Thank you again, sis.
And no one will be turned away for lack of funds. If you need a scholarship, holler at your girl.
There you have it. Can't make it no better. So again, don't lean in if you don't have to, though. If you can pay, pay. Y'all support.
Yeah.
Or make the donation.
Somebody got to pay for the venue, the food, and all the activities. If you can pay, that means you'll be paying for somebody else too, who can't pay.
There we go. There we go. So thank you again. We want to just again acknowledge you, and on behalf of the Bishop John Henry, we appreciate you, Queen.
Definitely.
You for allowing me to be here. Thank you.
Whew. All right, community. Sister Ayo, I know there was so much that was brought out in this. What did you take from it?
The importance of women like Ms. Dana sharing her story and sharing her strength, because throughout everything that she's been through, it has not hindered her. And there's so many women who have quieted their voices and feel that they cannot have that strength and tenacity because of what they've gone through. And they fall by the waysides of utilizing it as a crutch to stay stagnant in that mind space. But to see a woman like Miss Dana through each and every challenge, every trial, every tribulation, and her accountability within all of that, it shows women like myself and those who may not have access to a village or who have lost their way. And it shows that the strength of a woman is so much more. The power of a woman is so much more. The importance of a woman and our position here in life beside our men, leading our children, it can come from any which way. And it's never too late. It's never too late for you to grab hold of your crown and walk with pride. So I again, I thank her so much for coming on, and I appreciate her for sharing her story. I appreciate her for sharing her experience and how it's brought her throughout all of these things, and she has come out victorious and continuing to extend that olive branch to bring up more women and bring them into their life. So I just really appreciate the night.
Well, it truly, truly was impactful. And again, we've had the opportunity and privilege to hear from Miss Dana Cheatham, another hidden gem. And again, the symbolism of something like a hidden gem being given the opportunity to shine light. Her story is so extreme. Her testimony is so dramatic that a lot of times I think people get numb to these stories. But to actually hear her voice, her own words, and see that she's turned all of her tribulations into an opportunity to pour back into others is something that I think we can all be encouraged and inspired by. Again, community, we know that a lot of people are going through things and they don't feel like they have a voice. We want to make sure that we can continue to be that voice for you, but be encouraged. If you can look up, you can get up. And just because you've had a couple bad situations happen in your life doesn't mean you can't turn something that was broken into something that's beautiful. So again, we want to thank Ms. Cheatham for coming on. We support the women's empowerment movement. And on behalf of the bishop, everybody here at both sides of the conversation community, we're going to go ahead and bid you a good night. Y'all be blessed.
Good night.